Have you ever looked at a giant stone building and thought, wait a minute, how in the world did they build that? I'm talking about giant rocks as heavy as 100 school buses. But they are stacked so perfectly that you can't even fit a piece of paper between them. It is totally crazy, right? Our history books tell us that people a long time ago only had simple tools, stuff made of copper, a little bit of wood, and some plain old rope. But then, we look at these rocks. We see holes drilled into them that look like they were made by super-powered modern drills. It makes you wonder, is the official story really true? Is it just a big accident that we find the same exact crazy buildings in South America, in Egypt, and in Japan? These people lived thousands of miles apart. They lived thousands of years apart. Today, you and I are going on a huge adventure. We are going to fly around the world to 6 of the most mysterious places on planet Earth. Smart people in lab coats have been fighting about these places for a very long time. But today, we are going to play detective. We are going to separate the spooky ghost stories from the real, awesome facts. Are you ready? Buckle your seatbelts, because what I am about to tell you is going to blow your mind and change the way you think about the past. Our very first stop is an island called Java. It's in a country called Indonesia. For hundreds and hundreds of years, the people living there would climb up this big hill called Gunung Padang. To them, it was just a special, holy hill, just a big pile of dirt with some old square rocks on top where they could pray. But everything changed in the year 2010. Scientists showed up. And they didn't come to pray. They came to work. The scientists brought big fancy machines that act like X-ray glasses for the dirt. They scanned the ground, and boom. The computers showed something shocking. This was not a normal hill. Hidden under the grass and the mud was a giant building. It looked like a massive pyramid. When the scientists tested the dirt between the rocks to see how old it was, their jaws dropped to the floor. The test said it was 20,000 years old. Let me explain how crazy that is. 20,000 years ago was the Ice Age. Woolly mammoths were still walking around. The Egyptian pyramids wouldn't be built for another 15,000 years. When people heard this on the internet, they went nuts. Why? Because it breaks all the rules. Science says that back in the Ice Age, people were just running around in animal skins, living in caves and hunting for berries. They didn't have kings, or money, or farms. So how could they feed thousands of workers to build a giant mountain of rock? They couldn't. People who love aliens and magic immediately said, see, this is proof of Atlantis, an underwater magic city. Or maybe aliens came down and used lasers to cut the rocks. But the real answer is actually super simple, but still amazing. When everyone calmed down, the rock experts looked closer. The rocks building this pyramid are called columnar basalt. That is a fancy word for volcano rocks. When a volcano spits out hot lava and it cools down, it naturally cracks into perfect, long, flat shapes. They look exactly like giant stone French fries. So, aliens didn't cut the rocks. Mother Nature made the rocks. But here is the cool part. The ancient people living in the caves did find these rocks. And without any big trucks or cranes, they picked up thousands of these super heavy stone French fries and moved them around to make flat stairs on the hill. The real mystery isn't magic lasers. The real mystery is, how did a bunch of cavemen work together so nicely for so many years without a boss yelling at them? They used what nature gave them. Okay, so in Indonesia, people just moved rocks around. But what we are looking at next is going to make your brain hurt, because in India, the builders didn't stack rocks. They destroyed a mountain to make a piece of art. Welcome to the Kailasa Temple in India. When you first see this building, your eyes don't understand it. Think about how you build a house with Legos. You start at the bottom, right? You put pieces on the floor, then you build the walls, and you put the roof on the very top. Here, they did the exact opposite. This temple is as tall as a 9-story apartment building, but it is not made of separate blocks. The whole entire thing was carved out of one single giant rock. They started at the sky, and cut going down into the dirt. Imagine taking a block of wood and a knife and carving a little toy horse. Now imagine that block of wood is a giant mountain, and your toy horse is a massive building with giant doors, huge statues of elephants, and giant rooms. To make this happen, the workers had to chip away 200,000 tons of rock. If you put all that rock into dump trucks, the line of trucks would be 25 miles long. And here is the scariest part. They were not allowed to make a single mistake. If a worker accidentally hit his hammer too hard and broke the nose off an elephant statue, oops, you can't glue it back on. You can't go to the store and buy a new rock. The whole temple would be ruined forever. The signs say they built it in just 18 years, but if you do the math, that means workers had to chop up and carry away 30 tons of rock every single day. No weekends, no holidays, rain or shine. People on the internet say, no way, they must have had a magic sound machine that melted the rock, or alien lasers. But nope, no aliens. Just really smart planning. The secret was gravity. Because they started at the top, they didn't have to lift heavy rocks up into the sky. They just chipped the rock and let it fall down to the ground. And their tools? They used little pieces of dry wood. They would drill small holes in the rock, shove the dry wood inside, and pour water on it. When wood gets wet, it swells up and gets fat. It expanded so hard that it snapped the giant rocks perfectly in half. The real magic was just lots and lots of people. Thousands of workers, taking turns, working day and night. It proves that humans who work really hard together are way stronger than any alien laser. Our next building was hiding at the bottom of the ocean. Nobody knew it was there until a guy looking for sharks bumped into it. Let's go to Japan, to a tiny island called Yonaguni. In the year 1986, a scuba diver was swimming deep in the dark water. He wanted to find hammerhead sharks. But suddenly, he saw something huge. It was a giant stone castle under the sea. He saw perfectly flat stairs, sharp corners. It even looked like there was a big road wrapping around it. It was bigger than a football field. When he told people, the world went crazy. It's the Japanese Atlantis, they yelled. Here is the big problem. That castle is deep underwater. The last time the ocean was low enough for that rock to be in the dry air was 10,000 years ago. If people built it, that means it is 5,000 years older than the pyramids in Egypt. People who love mysteries point out weird holes that look like they were meant to hold giant wooden poles. There is even a rock that looks exactly like a giant turtle head. Who built this port before the ocean swallowed it up? Well, scientists are split into two teams. One team says, people built it. The other team, the rock experts, say, hold on a minute. The rock experts explained that this specific kind of stone breaks in straight lines all by itself. When the earth shakes, the rock cracks perfectly straight. Then, for thousands of years, the fast ocean water washed away the loose pieces, leaving behind what looks like giant stairs. Nature is just a really good artist. But both teams agree on one cool thing. Mother Nature probably made the rough shape of the stairs. But thousands of years ago, before the water rose, ancient people probably found it. They saw the flat rocks and said, hey, this is a great place to hang out. They probably chipped away a few corners to make it perfect. So, it's a team project, built by nature, finished by humans. The ocean hides things well, but the dirt is even better at keeping secrets. In Turkey, a normal guy was just trying to fix his house, and he found a secret door to a giant underground world. Imagine you are playing in your basement. You hit a wall with a hammer, and suddenly, a dark, spooky tunnel opens up. That is exactly what happened to a man in Turkey in 1963. He found the door to an underground city called Derinkuyu. When the scientists went in, they couldn't believe their eyes. This wasn't just a basement. It was 18 stories deep. In the pitch-black dark, 20,000 people could live down there. They brought their cows and sheep down there too. They had schools, kitchens, and places to make oil. The tunnels went down almost 300 feet into the earth. But the craziest part? They had secret air vents so nobody would suffocate, and you couldn't even see the holes from the surface. Why would anyone want to live like a mole in the dark, away from the warm sun? The internet went wild again. It's a bomb shelter, people said. They were hiding from nuclear weapons, or they were hiding from aliens flying in the sky. They point out the giant stone doors. The doors were like massive wheels made of rock that weighed 1,000 pounds. And guess what? You could only lock the door from the inside. They were definitely keeping something out. But the real answer isn't aliens, it's just bad guys. A long time ago, that part of the world was always getting attacked. Huge armies on horses with swords were always coming to steal things. The dirt in Turkey is made of old volcano ash. When it is under the ground, it is as soft as butter. You can carve it with a spoon. But when air hits it, it gets hard as concrete. So, when the bad guys were coming, the whole town grabbed their sheep, ran underground, and rolled the giant stone doors shut. The bad guys on horses would ride right over the grass, not even knowing that 20,000 people were eating dinner right under their horses' feet. It is a masterpiece of playing hide and seek. Underground cities kept people safe, but out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, there is a city that the locals are terrified of. They won't even go near it at night. If you go to a tiny island called Pohnpei, the people will warn you, do not go to Nan Madol after the sun goes down. They believe the ghosts of angry ancient kings live there. Nan Madol is the only ancient city in the world built right on top of the ocean water. It is like a giant maze of 92 fake islands connected by water roads. But it doesn't look happy and sunny. It looks heavy and scary. The walls are 25 feet tall. That's almost as tall as 3 houses stacked up. And the walls are made of giant black stone logs. Every single stone log weighs as much as a school bus. To build this crazy water city, they used as much heavy rock as the Great Pyramid of Egypt. But guess what? Egypt had millions of people. This tiny island only had maybe 25,000 people. They didn't have metal tools. They didn't even have wheels. So how did they move thousands of school bus-sized rocks across the jungle, through the muddy swamps, and stack them in the ocean? The locals say it was magic. They have a story about twin brothers who were wizards. The story says the wizards played a magic song, and the rocks sprouted wings and flew through the air like birds. The alien fans love this place. Compasses spin around like crazy here. Electronics break. The alien fans say, these rocks are a giant radio antenna left by spaceships. But scientists finally figured it out, and it is brilliant. They didn't drag the rocks through the mud. They used the water. They tied the giant rocks underneath big rafts made of bamboo. When a heavy rock is underwater, it feels a little bit lighter. The rafts floated the giant stones right up to the city. To stack them up super high, they just made ramps out of dirt and used giant palm tree logs to roll the rocks up. But why did they build it? The answer is really mean. The king who lived there was a bully. He built this water city as a giant jail for his friends. He told all the other chiefs, "You have to come live with me in my beautiful new city." It sounded nice, but it was a trap. There was no fresh water on these fake islands. You couldn't grow fruit. Every single drop of water and every coconut had to be brought over on a boat by the king's guards. If one of the chiefs got mad and wanted to start a fight, the king just said, "Okay, no dinner for you." The king controlled the food, so he controlled the people. Nan Madol was just a fancy giant trap. Okay, so far we have solved all the puzzles. The cavemen used volcano rocks, the Indians used gravity, the Turks dug in soft dirt, the kings used bamboo rafts. But our final stop actually makes the scientists scratch their heads. We are going back to Egypt. But forget the Great Pyramids. Forget the Sphinx. The craziest thing in Egypt is deep underground. In the year 1850, a French explorer was digging in the sand and found a secret door. It was blocked by a massive wall of rock. He literally had to use dynamite to blow it up. When the smoke cleared, he walked into a totally black, quiet tunnel. The tunnels went on for miles, but in the walls of the tunnels, there were giant rooms, and inside these rooms were the biggest boxes you have ever seen in your life. There were 24 giant stone boxes, called sarcophagi. They were made of rock-hard black granite. Every single box was 13 feet long and weighed 100 tons. That is heavier than 2 military tanks. And the lid on top of the box weighed 30 tons. The explorer noticed something crazy. The dust on the floor had footprints from 3,000 years ago. Nobody had ever broken into this room. The boxes were perfectly glued shut. He thought, oh my gosh, I am going to find so much gold and treasure inside. It took forever, but they finally pushed the 30-ton lid open. They shined their flashlights inside. Do you know what they found? Nothing. Zero. Zip. No gold. No mummies. No bones. It was totally empty. Why in the world would someone build a 100-ton safe to keep absolutely nothing inside? Here is where it gets weird. A modern engineer went down there and measured the inside of the boxes. The corners were perfectly, mathematically straight. The walls were polished so smooth they looked like glass. Try to imagine a guy with a tiny copper chisel, sitting inside a pitch-black box, holding a little fire candle, trying to polish the hardest rock on Earth to make it perfectly flat. One mistake, and it is ruined. The alien guys say these boxes were teleportation machines, or giant batteries. The scientists don't believe in teleporters. They know the Egyptians could cut the rock. They just used copper saws and poured thousands of pounds of sand over the rock to slowly grind it down. It took years, but they could do it. But here is the mystery that nobody can answer. How did they get the boxes into the tunnel? The tunnels are super skinny. 2 normal people can barely walk past each other. How do you pull a 100-ton box down a skinny hallway, turn a sharp corner, drop the box into a hole in the floor, and gently put a 30-ton lid on top? When there is no room to use any tools, there is barely enough room to squeeze your hand next to the box. You can't fit a crane down there. This place is the one big mystery left. Even with our big modern machines today, doing this would be an absolute nightmare. We have traveled all over the world today. We saw pyramids from the Ice Age, 18-story underground bunkers, and puzzle boxes that no one can figure out. It is really fun to say, aliens did it, or it was a magic wand, but the truth is actually much cooler. Ancient humans were not dumb. No, they didn't have cell phones. They didn't have the internet, but they had something we don't have today: extreme patience. They had time, and they had thousands of people willing to work together for their whole lives to build something amazing. When we look at these giant rocks, we realize how super powerful human beings really are. We haven't lost magic. We have just forgotten how much we can do when we work together, instead of relying on computers for everything. Who knows? Maybe in 10,000 years, someone will dig up our cities and think we used magic too. Which of these crazy places was your favorite? Let me know down in the comments below. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button, because our world is full of crazy secrets, and we are going to explore all of them. See you next time.